Hey guys, Miss Terrell here. Today we're looking at Geometry 4.1, Types of Triangles. Our essential questions: how do you name triangles by their sides and angles? And secondly, what is the sum of angles in a triangle? First of all, we're going to look at naming triangles by sides and by angles. So the first one here we have is naming by angle. When you have three acute angles, all these angles are less than 60 degrees. That means you are going to have an acute triangle. I'm going to abbreviate triangle by drawing a triangle there. If you have one obtuse angle, okay, right here, if this angle is between 90 and 180 degrees, one of those angles, then you are going to call this an obtuse triangle. If you have a right angle, okay, noted by the box in 90 degrees, this is going to be called a right triangle. And then finally we have a triangle that has all three angles congruent. All right, so that has a fancy word, and that is equiangular. Equiangular, meaning that all the angles are equal, equiangular. In our first example here, we are going to use the diagram and we're going to classify each triangle by its angles. So first of all, we're going to find triangle CDE. So let me trace out triangle CDE over here. And when I do that, notice that you have the box in the corner here. So when you have that right angle, you're going to call this a right triangle. All right, number two. Number two says you are looking at triangle BCE. So let's trace out triangle BCE. And notice that it appears that you have an obtuse angle here at angle C. So that is going to make your triangle an obtuse triangle. Number three, we are going to look for triangle ABE. All right, let's see, triangle ABE. Notice I'm tracing it here in green. And you have marked that all these angles are congruent. So this is going to be an equiangular triangle. Moving down to number four, triangle BDE. Let's find BDE. Notice that since you have the box there and it's extended there, this would again be an obtuse angle there. So this would be called an obtuse triangle. And finally, for number five, let's find triangle CFE. So tracing out CFE, it appears that all of these angles are smaller than 90. So that is going to make this an acute triangle. Now we're going to look at naming our triangles using the lengths of their sides. When you have these hash marks on here like this means that all three sides are congruent, and that is going to be called an equilateral triangle. An equilateral triangle. Equilateral sides. Equal sides. When you have a triangle with two congruent sides, notice the hash marks here showing that they are congruent. That is going to be called an isosceles triangle. And then when you have no sides congruent, you have one mark, two marks, and three marks, none of those being the same, that is going to be called a scalene triangle. Directions. Using the diagram, classify each triangle by its side. So we're only using the words right above here. Number 6, triangle JKM. So find the vertices and trace that out. JKM. I went to the wrong place there. Let's try this again. J to K and to M. All right, so this would be a scalene triangle. None of the side lengths are the same. Number 7, triangle KLN. KLN is right here, And notice that you have 2 hash marks here and here, and 1 hash mark here, so you have a pair of congruent sides. So this would be an isosceles triangle. And finally, let's look at number 8, triangle JKN. J to K to N. Notice that there is 1 hash mark on all of these sides. So that means that all of those sides are congruent, and that will make this an equilateral triangle. Yep, we said it, equilateral. All right, guys, guest appearance by Finn. This is Ava's dog, and he is staying with us because she went to the beach, and he is getting ready to growl at me. He is really not that nice, but sometimes he looks really, really cute, so I still have to like him, even though he scares me to death. All right, let's get back to triangles. All right, we will do a little demo in class to show you that triangles, the sum of the angles in a triangle is always going to add up to 180 degrees. Any triangle in the world, those 3 angles in the triangle add up to 180. So let's look at some examples here. We're going to start out with a triangle with an angle of 85 and an angle of 50, and we're trying to find this missing angle right down here. So what you want to do is we could add these 2 angles together. So we would say 85 plus 50, that would be 135. And we know that the sum of all 3 angles is 180. So then we would say 180 minus 135 to get 45 degrees for our missing angle right there. Number 2. Here, you're asked for this angle outside the triangle. So to find that one, we're going to have to find the other angles inside the triangle. Notice right here you have a linear pair. Side by side, these angles always add up to 180. So to find this missing angle, we would say 180 minus 137 to get 43 degrees. Then we need to find this other missing angle inside the triangle, this one right here. Let's just put a little X there to know which one we're talking about. So to find that one, I need to add 102 and 43 because that's the 2 angles that I already know, and that would be 145. And then, well, we know all 3 angles add up to 180, so if we say 180 minus 145, we get that the angle X right here is 35 degrees. And then to find that exterior angle there, notice that you have a linear pair. These 2 angles side by side, they add up to 180. So you're going to say 180 minus 35 to get your final answer of 145 degrees. All right, number 3, we're looking for this angle outside the triangle. Notice that it would make a vertical angle right here across from the question mark. So all we need to do is find the missing angle inside the triangle. So what we have here is 30 plus 20 is 50. And then we would subtract from 180. Okay, so 180 minus 50 would give us 130 degrees. So if this angle right here is 130, then directly across from it, your vertical angle is 130 degrees. Number 4. All right, so look at this. It's like you have 2 mountains here. Here's one mountain, and then right beside it, you have this other mountain over here. And we're trying to find this angle down in the corner. So a couple of things to notice. Right here, when you have this straight line, these 3 angles, I'm going to put a little 1 and 2. 1, 2, and 50, they would add up to 180. All right, the angles inside the first triangle here, your first triangle being the one I'm going to highlight here in blue, those 3 angles have to add up to 180. All right, so if we add these 2 over here, we're going to get 125. So subtract that from 180, and that will give you 55 degrees. All right, moving on. We need to find the measure of angle 2 right here. Okay, we know 1 is 55. So let's add up the 50 and 55 to get 105. Subtract that from 180 because you have the straight line there. And that will give you 75 degrees. All right, for angle 2. Then we're finally over here at the last triangle. At the last triangle, we know that one angle is 75. One is 35 up there at the top. Okay, so we're going to add those two together. 75 plus 35, that looks like a 110 degrees. Let's see, I'm having trouble with that there in my head all of a sudden. And then finally, to find the value of the question mark, you have 180 minus 110 for a grand finale answer of 70 degrees. Our last example, number 5, label the triangle and solve. Angle W has an expression value of x minus 22. Angle X is 3x plus 19, and angle Y, x minus 17. Find the measure of angle X. So, what do we know here? We know that these three angles, X, W, and Y, add up to 180. So what I want you to do is pause the video, write your equation, adding up the three angles, and solve for the measure of angle X. All right, check your algebra here. Make sure that you solve to get X equals 40. Now we need to find the measure of angle X. All right, so here it says the measure of angle X. The measure of angle X is going to be 3 times 40 plus 19. So here we have 120 plus 19, and that would give you a final answer of 139 degrees for angle X. Now, I cannot help myself. I need to check to make sure this is correct. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come up here and I'm going to plug in 40 minus 22. And that will give me the measure of angle W is 18 degrees. And then down here, angle Y, I'm going to have a 40 minus 17, and that will give me 23 degrees for angle Y. Now, if I add up 139, 23, and 18, if I add these numbers, I am going to get that, in fact, my algebra is correct, that I get 180 degrees, so I am super happy. All right, guys, this is your introduction to triangles. Remember that any triangle, these three angles, 1, 2, and 3, add up to 180 degrees. When you have a linear pair side by side, 2 and 4, they add up to 180 degrees.